Reading from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21, verses 1 through 11. When they had come near Jerusalem and had reached Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, just say this: 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them immediately." This took place to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet, saying, "Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt, and put their cloaks on them, and he sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and that followed him were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest heaven." When he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil, asking, "Who is this?" And the crowds were saying, "This is the prophet, Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." Thus ends the reading of the word. Most people think of Palm Sunday pretty much the same way. Most people figure Palm Sunday is Palm Sunday. You know, it's also Passion Sunday. I don't know if any of you have ever been to church on Palm Sunday / Passion Sunday when they did the entire Passion narrative for the Sunday worship service. But I will tell you, I've done it once, and it was very cumbersome. I would much rather spend Palm Sunday being in denial. Palm Sunday in Matthew's Gospel is not exactly the same as it is in Mark's Gospel or in Luke's Gospel, as perhaps you got the hint while I was reading the story. Each one of the Gospel narrators has a different take, or in some cases, a different translation has occurred. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus makes a statement at the beginning. This is probably true in most of the other stories. He sends the disciples to go and get the donkey. But in this story, the donkey has a colt with it, a foal. And Matthew's Jesus, sends his disciples not only to get the donkey, and if you look at your bulletin, there's a picture on the front of your bulletin that hasn't just on the one. But in Matthew's Gospel, he sends the disciples to go get the donkey and the colt. And as we picture it then, the cloaks that are thrown over the animals are thrown over both the donkey and the colt. Now, all I can think of is a rodeo or a circus. You know, where the horse lady rides the 2 horses. I'm not trying to be ridiculous, but you've got 2 animals that somebody was trying to explain that maybe Jesus was sitting sideways O daughters of Zion. And it's in the Messiah. It's an aria in the Messiah that is sung. How does it start, Michael? How does the Messiah?
It starts with
Oh.
every valley shall be exalted. Or
O daughter of Zion,
rejoice.
rejoice! Anyway, the King cometh unto thee, humble and riding on a donkey. And for Matthew, it is very, very important that the depiction of this event looks like the picture that people will recall in the scripture. Now, how many of you have ever been in a demonstration? Probably not this generation. Oh, sure. Some people will admit it. A demonstration or, all right, yeah, well, sure, I know you will, Amy. You and me too. If you've been in a demonstration, or if you've been a political campaigner, anybody been in a political campaign? This, I want to paint a picture for you. This parade, seemingly, of Jesus coming into the city of Jerusalem, Matthew paints it as this huge, like former day ticker tape parade. Like, you know, the 4th of July parade, where the mayor is in the lead car waving. How do you picture Jesus entering Jerusalem? In former days, when there were parades saluting dignitaries, the people waved palm branches as an extension of their arm. There are no palm branches in this story. We picture this in a parade. Don't you picture people with that what's that, foam hand thing? That's what this is. The palm branches are waving to the dignitaries. The ticker tape that salutes the dignitaries that come into the city almighty and are to be respected and praised. The whole sense of this triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, Matthew is trying to depict this kind of an event. People didn't ride into Jerusalem. We always think of our cowboys and Indians, and everybody comes into town, some kind of a conveyance or a cart. But in those days, the pilgrims were walking. Everybody was walking. And there were thousands of pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem, because it was the week of the Passover, and it was an obligatory visit for thousands of people. In the midst of these thousands of people walking to Jerusalem to go to the temple and to pay their appropriate respects and make their appropriate sacrifices in the temple, the disciples mounted Jesus on a colt to lift him up above the crowd. They were making a demonstration. When you make a demonstration, you want everybody to see you, don't you? How do you identify yourself if you're doing a demonstration? You wear armbands? Do you carry placards? Yes. Well, I remember in the 50s,